Welcome back to Women in Building. We are very excited to be joined by Emily, a personal builder for a local builder here in Kansas City. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So like you said, I'm a personal builder with Summit Homes. I've been here for about a year and a half now, and my role is to manage the construction of anywhere between 12 to 15 homes at a time.
Oh man, so you stay busy.
I stay very busy, yeah. And so kind of personally, my background is actually in engineering. So I went to Missouri S&T and have a degree in architectural engineering. But I've found my way here to residential construction kind of through my family and some other people in the industry. I am married and I live downtown Kansas City with my 3 cats. And
cat
yes, I'm a cat person. Yes, and we live in a very small condo, so we are
Do
all
you
cozy.
have your own cat room in your condo?
Like
They have their own space?
My husband wishes, yeah. No, no, they are everywhere. We all live together as a happy family.
Okay.
That is so funny.
Okay. So your degree's in engineering?
Yes, so I went to Missouri S&T,
Okay.
studied architectural engineering, and then right out of college, I graduated in 2019. I started in bridge structural engineering, which is
Oh.
completely different.
Yes.
And I really never saw myself going into residential construction. When I started, I had thought that I was going to go into residential, like structural engineering and designing of houses, but that's just not where my path took me. So it's really cool because I'm actually 4th generation in construction.
Oh wow.
My dad and his dad and his dad were all carpenters. So
Oh.
growing up, I was on job sites with my dad, and then my mom is really a jack of all trades, Jill of all trades.
I like that.
I like it.
And she framed with my dad for a while and then did his books for his framing company for a while. But more than that, I think she really inspired me to just be able to branch out, try something new, and be confident in kind of moving into a new industry that doesn't have a lot of women in it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think
So-
it's amazing.
Yeah, talk about that path a little bit. So you graduate with
Yeah.
your engineering degree.
Yeah.
But yet it's not where your passion lied. Like, what was that transition that made you go, you know what? I want to go build houses.
Yeah, well, it's a tough one because I graduated in 2019, and then of course we all know what happened in 2020. There was the pandemic, and so at that point I had been doing bridge engineering for about a year and a half, and I think up to that point I was thinking like I can stick it out, it's gonna be fine. Like I just wasn't loving it, and the company itself wasn't really a good fit for me. But I kept thinking like I could stick it out, I could make it work. And then once the pandemic started and we moved to working from home, I just felt less support, and I was like, why am I even doing this? You know, I think a lot of people felt that same way too with the pandemic, that it's like you're working from home. All you have in your life is like you and your family, in my case my cats too, but it's like
Yeah.
I wake up every day and I spend my whole day doing this thing that I don't love. And so it was a very tough decision because I just spent 4 years studying engineering, thinking that's what I wanted to do. And unfortunately there is a bit of a reputation in the engineering world that construction is kind of like where you go if you have flunked out of engineering.
Oh.
So there
I
was
didn't know that.
yeah, so at least at Rolla there is.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of battling that and just battling like, where am I going to go? I thought this was going to be the path for me, but I decided to leave, and it was a big leap of faith, and luckily I had the support of my family and my husband to leave kind of without a plan because not a lot of places were hiring at that point. So then between then and coming to Summit, I kind of bounced around, did some different stuff, but ultimately it gave me the skills I needed to market myself and end up here, which Summit's an amazing company. So I'm glad to work here.
Very cool.
Awesome.
So what do you think in this industry, what do you think the biggest hurdle is actually being an on-site construction manager? Because I feel like maybe your struggles are probably way more predominant just because you're living it every day because you're in the houses.
Yeah.
So what would you say?
I think the most difficult thing is that there's this burden of proof as a woman in construction. I feel like for men, they kind of get this pass of like, yeah, they're like 80% good at their job and it's fine and they move on.
Yeah.
But it does seem for women that if you're not 100% on top of your game all the time, that they're gonna say, oh, it's because she's a girl, she can't figure this out, she's not good enough to be here. And that's kind of the assumption. Whereas like I said, I think for men they get a bit of a pass. So that's been the biggest thing. Is like,
do you think as women we put that on ourselves?
that is a big
Like
part of
the
it.
expectation is
Yeah.
we have to do 120%.
Mhm.
They only have to do 80.
Yeah.
Or is that the real expectation?
Yeah, and that's a good question.
And I do feel like, I mean, I feel like with any aspect of our lives, I feel like women in general, we just have this higher expectation for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I could definitely see your point in, you know, is it an actual reality or is it just a perception we put on ourselves?
Yeah. And I will say that is the best experience I've had, is that there doesn't seem to be like obvious sexism. I've not, in my year and a half here, and then even when I was in engineering, no one ever outright said, like, you need to try harder, you need to do more, like, you don't belong here. And I think that's
That is really good to hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
that's huge. But in my mind, I think about it kind of as three waves, because I think people who came into this industry 20 years ago, I think those women did experience it. My mother-in-law is a structural engineer as well, and she started, and she tells me stories about like being obviously discriminated against.
Yeah.
And that was in her time. And I think we're in this second wave now where women are here, we're doing amazing work. There's just not enough of us. And my hope is that in the next generation, like our kids' age, that, you know, women will be able to come in and be seen really as equals, and hopefully not feel that pressure to prove themselves, whether we put it on ourselves or it's the industry.
Absolutely. So that actually makes me think of something. So when you're thinking of, you know, when you were younger, for instance, and you were trying to make a decision on what path you were going to go down, if you could go back and tell yourself, like, hey, this is what you should do, this is the path you're going to go down, what would you tell yourself? Because I think people at home right now that are thinking, you know, that seems really daunting to be an actual builder, you know, what would that look like for you?
Honestly, I don't think that I would have changed a lot, other than supporting myself when I realized that my passion did lie in project management and in construction management. I think part of my choice to go into engineering and think that that was the route I needed to take, it laid a lot in pressure I was putting on myself, and that kind of bias I was telling you about before, where it does seem like construction isn't as highly regarded as engineering. So I wish I could go back to my younger self and say, like, hey, just buckle down. If that's what you love to do and that's where your passion lies, like, let's do it now. Let's not waste the time of going into engineering and trying this job that you're not a good fit at and don't really have the passion for, and just trust yourself that this is where your passion is and what you're good at and what you're confident in, and start sooner, honestly.
Yeah. So you're happy
Yes.
with your decision?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me has been finding so much more confidence in myself. And I don't know if that's a career change or the choice of industry or not, but I have found that being in construction, I've gotten a much thicker skin in a good way. I can kind of roll with the punches, and I find myself being more flexible and really just more confident, you know, more willing to negotiate and kind of say, hey, you're wrong, I think I know better, you know. And it was very tough in the beginning. When I was in training, I did a lot of calls to Bill Quick was my mentor. I think for the first 3 months after I got some of my own houses, I would call him like once a day being like, I'm trying to send this email and I think it's going to come across wrong and I don't know, and please, like, I knew my stuff, but I lacked the confidence of, like, this is how I'm going to say it, this is how they're going to take it, and it's going to be fine.
Yeah. Having good management is important to being successful.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm glad he was supportive.
Yeah.
Okay, so my favorite question to ask everybody.
Okay,
and
I
I know you guys already know.
I just let her ask it.
I know, it's so,
It's
I
your
just love it.
deal.
So, do you have a memorable moment or a funny story in construction that you would like to share with everyone? Because this is
Yes.
we can't wait.
I think I do have a good one, and I think it really exemplifies how women in construction just have a little bit maybe more empathy. So exactly. So it was maybe I was 3 months in, and I had my first houses, and my manager Steve at the time, he was off work, and so I had to call a different area manager. When I went into a house that was at a stage like this, mechanicals, and I was kind of walking around, checking everything out, and then I see this pair of eyes looking at me from underneath the bathtub, and I was like, wait a second, and I turned around, and it was just the tiniest baby kitten.
Oh, it was a cat!
And of course, I can't just leave the cat there.
Yeah, no.
But I'm like, knew enough that I'm like, can I leave work? Can I go to a shelter? Can I get this cat? Like, what, can I put this cat in my truck? Like, what can I do?
Is this really cat number 3 that you have?
No,
Oh, that was a great part of the story.
no, it would have been cat number 4, and I think my husband would have never forgiven me. So
Yeah.
we were maxed out, and actually one of our cats is illegal in the condo, so don't
Ooh.
cut that part out. But so I found the cat, and I wanted to catch it, but I didn't know what to do. So I called Josh, who I hadn't worked with before, and I didn't really know his personality. And I'm like, hey, really professionally, like, hey, so I'm in this situation. I found a kitten in one of my job sites, and he just kind of was like, okay. And I was like, well, can I take it to a shelter? Like, what can I do? Can I leave work for this? And he's like, yeah, I guess. And so then a couple weeks later, after I kind of knew him better and we were more familiar with each other, he's like, yeah, when you called me about that, I just wanted to tell you to leave it there.
So there's a difference between a man and a woman.
Yeah,
on the job
exactly,
site.
exactly.
Because immediately when you said that, I was like, of course you need to go to the shelter.
Yeah,
I'm
of
like,
course you need to rescue
Yeah.
it.
But all the guys are like, no, it's fine.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
leave it there to die.
Like, it'll leave the house eventually. But this story does have a happy ending. Megan Maxwell, who was she was the manager in Hawkesbury, and she ended up actually adopting him. So his name's Smokey, and he lives in Texas now.
Oh, so you gave him a good home.
Yes, I did.
Oh, that's a good
oh,
story.
that's actually super cool. Like, I know Megan so well, so it's like, I
Yeah.
feel like I'm going to call her afterwards and be like,
Oh, Smokey!
yeah, I know they're a cat now.
Send a picture of Smokey.
That
Yeah.
is cute.
And she told me that he is a terror, so he
Oh.
like climbs your curtains, climbs your chairs.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
but
Cats.
I'm
You
biased.
either love them or you hate them.
I think they're great.
I think they're great too.
Oh.
Okay, so before we get off of here, do you have any last minute advice or thoughts for girls or women at home that are thinking like, hey, I really want to take this leap, but I don't know how to do it?
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
I would say just do it. If you know that this is where your passion lies, just jump in head first. I have an engineering degree. There are other people here who have construction management degrees. I would say you don't really need either. If you have the little bit of experience, have a little bit of confidence, just jump in and be willing to learn. It's the biggest thing that I can say.
Yeah.
That's great.
I don't know why I totally forgot about this,
What?
but before we got on here, we were chatting about struggles in this industry, and you actually brought up a very valid point of a struggle that women have.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was?
Yes. So I brought up that one of the things I found myself Googling the most when I started at Summit was what to wear on the job site, because men have the uniform of like the branded polo and jeans and then like either work boots or tennis shoes. And I just felt like there wasn't an equivalent for women. And I still haven't figured it out, but I'm comfy today in this. But yeah, and then on top of that is PPE. So it seems like there's either men's size stuff or women's, and it's a horrible color of pink. Not that I don't like pink, but it's like,
And
we don't need to call
PPE
more
is-
attention. PPE is protective personal equipment. So it's key, it's key that it fits right. It's key that it looks good enough that you want to wear it and you're comfortable in it. So if anybody out there designs PPE or does clothing design, please, that's how you can get involved in women's
Shout
construction.
out for women's construction clothing.
Yes,
In
please.
petite sizes.
In petite sizes too.
Yes, women come in all sizes. So
Yes. Yep.
I love it. That's
Perfect.
so great. Well, we are so happy that you said yes to this
Yes.
interview. Thank you so much. Hopefully we've reached out to some people who are interested, some women who are interested in getting into construction or even building just in general.
Yeah.
And what's the best way if they want to reach out to you directly?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. So I have an account on there, or you can email me. My email is Emily M as in Murphy at summithomeskc.com.
Awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Emily,
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you for
Awesome.
having me.
And we will see you guys next week.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.